Hey, Warren Tarl here, the tax strategist, and it is weekend number 2 of tax season 2023, and let's keep things rolling with our weekend update. Today, you're going to notice there's a little bit of a theme going on here. And first, I saw this and I just knew we had to talk about this today. So yesterday, Friday, February 17th, the IRS missed a deadline. That's right, they missed a deadline. Now, just think what happens when you or I miss deadlines with the IRS. Now, keep that in mind here. So the IRS missed a deadline. They were supposed to, by yesterday, turn over their budget, their plan on how they were going to spend the $80 billion that Congress just gave them. You know, we've all heard about the IRS agents with the guns, all that stuff, but they're supposed to turn over their plan. Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury, who's oversees the IRS, gave them 6 months to come up with the plan. Guess what? No plan. Does that mean they're going to give the money back? Maybe we can impose a penalty? Maybe we just can't. No, never mind. So all of that means, and there was a funny line in here too. She specifically told the IRS to work closely with the Department Secretary to identify specific operational initiatives and associated timelines that will improve taxpayer services, modernize technology, and increase equity in our tax system by pursuing tax evasion by those at the top who today do not pay their tax bills. Yes, the IRS did come in on that part of the plan. We got to remember they are increasing their scrutiny of tips. So servers, beware, they are coming after your tips if you're not reporting them, and even if you are, they're probably going to say you're not reporting enough of them. So they did check off that part. They are going after those people at the top who just aren't paying taxes. So we got that. Anyway, I guess we'll have to see. They probably were granted an extension. But does it really matter? Does it really matter the IRS didn't turn in a budget? Just spend the money, because here's what else just came out. I told you there's a little bit of a theme to all this. The GAO, the Government Accounting Office, these guys, it's their job to basically audit the government, right? The federal government. They come out with they have to come out with financial statements, just like businesses, just like any of us. We have to come up with a financial statement and report it. Well, financial statements need to be audited so we can be sure what they're saying is truthful. So the Government Accounting Office's number one main job, they do a few other things, but the whole reason they were set up in the first place is to audit the agencies and the federal government as a whole. So now it's time to express, and when you do an audit, just inside stuff, right? We're not talking about an audit like the IRS does an audit, but audited financial statements. And the auditor then is to express an opinion on the financial statements. They audit and they say, yeah, these things look great. These things are fine. There's some material problems with this. Whatever, they're going to give their opinion based on the audit of those financial statements. Every once in a while, you can't give an opinion because there's just, the systems are so bad you can't, there's no way you can even they're unauditable. And guess what? The GAO and fiscal year ends in September. So the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2022. They're finally releasing their audit report. But actually their audit report is saying, sorry, we cannot express an opinion on the financial statements of the federal United States government. We cannot give an opinion. Why? Well, it's our job, right? We're supposed to do that. Well, here's what they found. Certain material weaknesses in internal controls over financial reporting and other limitations resulted in conditions that prevented the GAO from expressing an opinion on the financial statements as of the fiscal year end September 30th. That's, I already told you that. But what are they saying? Internal controls, those are the checks and balances that you know that people are recording things correctly. If you have a business and you have a secretary or you have a bookkeeper or you have one person responsible for doing everything, they're able to kind of cheat, right? They could, if you don't have internal controls supervising how people do things, you're never really sure if things are done right. So businesses are set up with internal controls. Government agencies should be set up with internal controls. Apparently, federal government, no internal controls, or at least material weaknesses in the internal controls. That wasn't it, though. There's also, so that they couldn't give an opinion on the financial statement. They also couldn't, another thing that auditors do when they look at a financial statement is they're also expressing an opinion as to whether this is sustainable. If a business looks like, based on their financial statements, it looks like that they're not going to be able to sustain and stay in business, the auditor cannot give them a clean audit report. They have to say, hey, the financial statements might look okay, but there's no way this business is going to survive, or we don't think it's going to survive. So they have to put a warning in there. So when we're looking at that, they said significant uncertainties, primarily related to the achievement of projected reductions in Medicare cost growth, prevented the GAO from expressing an opinion on the sustainability of the financial statements. So they're saying, look, they keep saying they're going to get all these savings. They're going to go and we're going to get all this stuff, and they're going to be able to cut Medicare costs, primarily is the one main reason they're pointing out. And they said, there's basically no evidence of that happening, so we can't give an opinion on the sustainability of the federal government. Also, material weaknesses and other scope limitations. Scope limitations means what you're allowed to look at. Limited tests of compliance with selected provisions of applicable law, regulations, and contracts, and grant agreements. So I got blah, 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 right? Basically, it means that the auditors, the GAO, was limited by the government, I suppose, from doing the tests that they needed to do to see if they were spending money according to the applicable laws and regulations, the contracts and grant agreements. They couldn't even tell if they were doing that correct because they weren't even allowed to look at everything they needed to look at to come up with this. So, again, why does the IRS even bother with it? Probably why they didn't meet the deadline, right? And they know this stuff, how this works better than anybody, right? So they know they'll pass, they'll miss the deadline. They might write a couple of things down. They know no one's going to hold them to it anyway. They got $80 billion they can do whatever the heck they want with, and no one's ever going to look at it. So that's for the financial statements for the entire government, the consolidated financial statements for the entire federal government, from agency to agency, everything. Well, the individual agencies also get audited, and it was time for a couple of those to come up. And they also could not express an opinion on the Department of Defense's financial statements. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all that detail, but they could not express an opinion, which means they couldn't complete an audit for the Department of Defense, and also the Department of Education. Couldn't audit them either. What's going to happen to these guys? Nothing. Oh, sorry, here we go. In commenting on the draft of this report, the Department of Treasury and Office of Management and Budget, OMB, those are the guys who are supposed to be doing this stuff, they expressed their continuing commitment to address the problems this report outlined. There you go. So that's that's our tax. That's our week 2. Maybe something else is going to happen, but in the meantime, taxes. Am I right?